War Eagle! Welcome to the Auburn Tigers Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brett Mason and Jamie Thomas.
Welcome into the Auburn Football Podcast from SoutheasternFootball.com here on War Eagle Sports Radio, a V Sporto channel bringing you all Auburn Tigers all the time. Remember to download the War Eagle Sports Radio's free iOS app, and you can follow the channel at Twitter at War Eagle Radio. And welcome into the show, broadcasting live from our respective Alabama and Auburn bunkers in the Southeast Alabama area. I'm Brett Mason. Here is my co-host, Jamie Thomas. War Eagle, buddy.
Roll Tide, man. We're big time now.
I know. It's like we're on some kind of network or something now.
Hey, man. People, they like to hear good Southern folks talk about good Southern football, man. I'm excited about this.
Our show is brought to you by Oddsworth Betting, one of the best pick services in the country with their stack hat sheet. You should see how that thing performed last year and so far this year. Prove to yourself how good it is at southeasternfootball.com/win. southeasternfootball.com/win. We are a proud compensated affiliate and glad to have those guys as sponsors of the show today. So, real quick reminder, we also do an Alabama podcast. You can head on over and find details on that if you'd like to know about Alabama. We do one of those as well, southeasternfootball.com. You can learn more about that podcast. And a big one lined up here. Of course, we got the second scrimmage Auburn had over the weekend. We'll talk about that. New segment on the show, the Big Five, where we talk about the big five biggest stories of the week in Auburn football and NCAA, around the SEC or whatever's big. New exciting news, new picks contest, the brainchild of none other than Jamie Thomas right there. He's the guy responsible for that. We'll tell you how you can get involved in that. Free picks with free prizes every week, all the way through the football season. We'll be getting to the Duke Williams drama. I'm sick of talking about Duke Williams, but we are on this podcast, but I may never talk about him again.
Duke is back.
Well, and then we'll have a lot of fun as we talk about the preposterous CBS bowl predictions. Oh, Lord. If you haven't seen those, stick around. That's coming up later in the show as well. So, second and probably maybe the final scrimmage of the season. They can do three. Gus in his press conference didn't really talk like they wanted to do three, but he said they'd check it out and see. Technically they can, but probably the last scrimmage before they get things together and start preparing for Louisville. I guess the big thing coming out of this was all the talk about Peyton Barber. I'm telling you, I'm a little torn, Jamie, on the information that's coming out about the running backs. It's almost as if they never mentioned Javon Robinson, but he's the guy getting all the carries. So yeah. I don't know if they're doing that on purpose, but Peyton Barber's just been lighting it up. I mean, in a game where they were concentrating on passing, and that was their goal, Gus said they were shooting for 70% passing or whatever. Barber was in there making every one of the snaps he got count, man. He had a 20-yard run, popped off a big one, 20 yards. He had several 10-yard runs, they said. And then he caught a big pass out of the backfield on a deep wheel route, and then 30 yards after the catch, which everybody was talking about. And they were running for those deep wheel routes out of the backfield. They were lining them up in the slot. I mean, this kid wants to be the guy. And I think he's talented. He could do it. It's definitely interesting to watch and hear what they're saying about him for sure.
Well, what's crazy, Brett, is I haven't heard a whole lot about Rock Thomas this preseason.
No, very little. I mean, you hear most about Peyton Barber, but I tell you, Rock Thomas is second. And the guy getting the majority of the snaps, you don't hear that much about at all, which is really weird. They just don't. They got to be – I don't know what to make of that. Do they like what he's doing so much is why he's getting most of the snaps and they think he's the go-to guy? Or is he the guy needing the most work is why he's getting most of the snaps? What do you make out of it, you know?
I don't know. That's it's definitely a strange situation. The build-up for Barber is there. I mean, you know, if you listen, he's going to be the next Bo Jackson. But you've got two great running backs – in Robinson and Rock Thomas. So I don't know. Maybe, you know, it's kind of like the Alabama quarterback situation. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah, that's a strong 3D right there. I mean, you know, whoever they name is quote unquote the number one.
Put them all on the field and run the wishbone.
Come on, man. I don't want to see Auburn running the wishbone.
You get to 8-10 yards of carry, man, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm just under the impression, this is what I'm taking away from it. I'm under the impression Robinson is going to be probably the number one back unless once they start playing live, something changes. And then I think they're just really going to mix and match with those other two guys because they can. And we'll see if it works out to be that way or not. Carl Lawson, who hopefully will be the great savior defense this season, didn't scrimmage. They say it's just a precaution. I mean, I guess they just want to make sure he's really healed up. You know, you'd hate to lose that guy in a scrimmage. On the flip side, true freshman Jeff Holland stepped in there and played the buck position, and actually got a little talk in the post scrimmage press conference about how well he played. Credited with a couple of sacks, him and Montravius Adams. Also caused some turnovers late in the scrimmage. So it's good to see true freshman getting in there and slugging it out. I mean, that's, you know, we've talked about this in previous podcast. If Auburn has any kind of problem, it's a depth issue. So anytime you can get a kid like that in there playing hard. Ricardo Lewis, who, you know, he could be the number one guy this year. You know, we'll talk about a lot probably about Duke Williams later on, but he popped off another big 90-yard TD reception, which is not too shabby, even if it is a scrimmage.
How many were of the yards were after the catch? Was it a bomb or was it a slant or what?
Yeah, see that they didn't say anything about it. I could find anything about it. I'm going to assume that it was probably, you know, he was just on some deep route. But I don't know, 90 yards, man. There's nobody passing for 80. So I mean,
Jeremy Johnson can throw the ball, you know, 76 yards. So
yeah, that is true. One of the big things they announced that they've settled on their 3 return men, and you and I tried to predict this a couple of podcasts back, but they're obviously going Ricardo Lewis and Rock Thomas, which I think everybody probably expected. Yeah. And then Jonathan Ford, Rudy Ford, which is safety. They're going to be putting him in there too. Still looking for other people to step up, but those guys are definitely in. Speaking of safeties, they didn't go into a lot of details, but you get the impression they weren't too pleased with them. And then in a post-scrimmage interview, Jonathan Ford came out and said that their execution was off. I think the exact quote was for most of the game. So that's not something you want to hear. I have nightmares when I dream about Auburn safeties sometimes. You know?
It's the only team in the SEC that plays worse coverage defense than Bama.
I tell you, you just never want to see anybody get more than about 10 yards out on. I mean, you're like,
every time the quarterback takes a 3-step drop, you're like, oh crap.
And probably the most telling thing, and we'll talk more about Duke Williams later in the podcast, but I thought it was interesting that when Malzahn was asked about Duke Williams, this is a direct quote of what he said. Now tell me how lackluster of a quote this is, Jimmy. There wasn't anything that stood out to me. He's in the process of getting better.
In other words, he's still in the doghouse.
Yeah. And
he may or may not play in the first game.
I don't know. It's so bad when you have such a talented guy who has the ability to be a first-round draft pick and maybe be the best or one of the top several best receivers in the league or in the country, and then you just have these issues. It's frustrating, man. Why is it always frustrating? Why has it got to be that way?
Seems like it happens at one major university every year. Somebody's in the doghouse. Bama has the problem all the time. There's always somebody that's going to be a big-time contributor or a big-time playmaker, and he's sitting out 2 or 3 games. I don't know, man. These kids, they have the whole world handed to them right there on a silver platter. You know, free education, getting educated to play football, got the whole world at their hands with being a potential first-round draft pick, like you said, and then just going to throw it away. I don't know.
It's a real head scratcher, buddy. It's a real head scratcher. Still to come on the podcast, we're going to tell you how you can sign up for our free Pick'em contest in our fantasy league, and it's not just something to do for fun. There will be actual weekly prizes. Jamie Thomas is footing the bill for them, so they're going to be nice because he don't.
That's right. Yeah, they're going to be nice. I come across some Auburn toilet paper the other day.
Oh God. You're not even saying that in a complimentary kind of way, which is what really sucks about that.
No. I mean, every Auburn fan in the world can put it right there next to their toilet. It'd be great.
We'll tell you how you can get on that coming up.
Eagle! Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Just search for Tigers and Time.
Right now, it's time to talk about the Big Five. It's a new weekly segment where we'll tell you the big five biggest things going on in SEC or Auburn football or around the NCAA. Could be interesting stuff, serious stuff, whatever. The Big Five sponsored by Oddsworth Betting, our favorite pick service, with their stat hack sheet, turning $100 bills into $500 bills. You got to like that. Check out their stats. They'll show you the proof at southeasternfootball.com/win. southeasternfootball.com/win if you want to make your bookie really hate you this fall. Go check those guys out. So kicking off the Big Five, Duke Williams, he comes back to practice finally. Has one day at practice, then they scrimmage, and then he's out with an injury. So that was short-lived. Hopefully it's nothing serious. They said they had him in a boot Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. But they put everybody in a boot now. So hopefully it's not a big a deal. Well, it's easy to stay healthy when you miss 7 days in a row of practice.
Yeah.
It's a little concerning. We'll see how that pans out. Well, this is just ridiculous. That's why it made the list at number 2. CBS comes out predicting Auburn will make the playoffs. That part, not so ridiculous. Just let me say that up front.
We would agree to disagree.
It's the other people that they predict that I have a problem with.
And we can agree on that, yeah.
If you want to know more about that, we'll talk more about it coming up a little bit later in the podcast. This sophomore, Peyton Barber, we talked about it earlier. He's just showing out. I mean, he seems to really want this job, and it seems like from the interview I've seen and then other people talking about it, it's like he's realized, this is the year I got to go after it. I just really need to go after it this year. Like he has some sense of urgency about him, or maybe some level of maturity has kicked in or whatever. But I mean, he's going for that job, which is good to see.
Well, the competition's going to make your other running backs better.
It came out yesterday that the Auburn web development team, I guess, trolled Alabama with their 404 message. And what happens is when you go to a website and there isn't a page there that's supposed to be there, it sends you to a 401 page. For instance, you can go to auburntigers.com/flitterlyfluttery, and it'll say, that page doesn't exist, and you'll get a 404 page. Well, apparently they designed it to make a lot of references to 1 second. Now, let me tell you something. I think it's cool they did it, Jamie, but I will agree with you. I've just never been a big fan of the 1 second meme. I don't know why. I just never have been I never jumped on board with that for whatever reason.
I told you I refuse to discuss anything from that game anymore.
Some serious stuff comes in at number 5. Now that I rehashed this list, this probably should have been the number 1 thing because it's the only thing in there that matters. New rules, 8-man officiating crews all across the SEC this year. They experimented with 1 8-man crew last year. And if you didn't hear the stats, they say the crews had lower penalties per game, and then the other half had more penalties per game, and the 8-man crew was right in the middle. They think it's the most honest, most fair version. Jamie isn't a huge fan of the 8-man crew, or any crew, I think is probably the way that works.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. I think it's just one more guy on the field that's not going to get it right. I'm just being honest. Yeah.
I tell you what, with all the technology, we're getting really close, Jamie, to where, those wires that sling those cameras.
The cameras, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you'll have those to where some guy who's also watching replays can drive it with a joystick and sit the ball down where it needs to be, pick the ball up and move it. We should do away with all of them.
I think what they should do is they should attach a referee to that wire. and sling him, just hang him over the field so he can see just like he's laid out, kind of like the Mission Impossible scene. And that way he's just right over it and he can see everything that's going on. And then when he makes a bad call, you can push a button and it'll shoot him all the way out of the stadium.
You're out of here. Next.
Next.
They hook up to some new guy's harness and off we go.
Yeah, there you go. I love it.
God, you're full of the best ideas, brother. Another new rule, we'll see how this turns out, much like the helmet rule where, if a player loses a helmet, drops his lid, he's out for a play. Now if there's some kind of a equipment violation, such as, this is one of the examples they used, untucked shirt, you're out for a play, which could get out of hand. I could see me slipping somebody, a couple $100 and getting a bunch of equipment violations in a game that helped my team.
How is a untucked jersey in any way not safe on the field is what I want to know.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. I guess theoretically your finger could get twisted up in it and it yank your finger out or something if you're tackling maybe. But
I used to play football, Brett, and I can honestly say face masks have caused my hands a lot of damage. Of course, I probably shouldn't have been grabbing those to begin with.
Yeah, there's a rule about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I've never had a problem with the jersey.
Yeah, I don't, and I mean, I've seen where players will play the whole game with and it's never been called or anything, like a whole game. Like he hadn't even tried to tuck it; it's just down.
Yeah, well, I mean, back in the day, the 80s and early 90s, they wore cutoff jerseys. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. What are some of the other ones? Oh, pulling a player off a pile is now a penalty, even if it's your own teammate and you're doing it in a friendly kind of way. You just got to step away from the pile. There'll be no pulling people off the pile. And maybe something that's good, they're going to have an independent medical guy or woman, I guess, at every game to make sure that the team doctors are following concussion protocol if a player comes off the field. I'm all for that. Player safety.
Yep, that's absolutely great addition to the rules there.
Still to come, we're going to dive into this Duke Williams situation. That's coming up in just a bit.
Download our free app in the App Store. Just search for Tigers and Tide in the App Store.
Well, we're very excited to announce this week brand new Pick'em contest, the brainchild of my partner Jamie Thomas, who has all the good ideas. It's free. We're using the Yahoo Pick'em service. You can go sign up for free. It's a fantasy Pick'em league, and we'll have weekly winners. So you go sign up. Weekly winner,
a grand prize winner. We may even, get a little crazy every week and give something to somebody that maybe you go 0 for 16 or something. You might get a prize for being, the dumbest football fan on the face of the earth.
Congratulations, You Suck Award.
Yeah, you suck. Here's a consolation prize.
If you want to sign up for the league, go ahead. Southeasternfootball.com/picks. We've made an easy page for you to find. Southeasternfootball.com/picks. And you'll need to use the password podcast, PODCAST, to sign up for the league. But it's free. Should be a lot of fun. We'll probably work in other things throughout the year. Maybe one week we do beat the host kind of thing or something like that. Different kinds of things we can do, make it a lot of fun. And something that kind of ties in with that is next week we will have a weekly guest on the show. Elizabeth Sturdivant is her name. She's from 3yardsinthecloud.com. She hosts a successful show on YouTube called Money in Your Pocket, where she tells you the best picks of the week and how to make money. I believe her picks all made money last year overall, which is pretty difficult to do. She's a guest on some big-time shows like the Scout.com Fantasy Sports Radio Show on Sirius XM, which leads everybody to wonder why she's on our show. I think she just had some downtime, maybe. I don't know.
I'm gonna need to speak to her with you not on the podcast for a little bit. I just need to know exactly what you have on her that you talked her into doing this. And she is a Bammer, right?
Yes. But look, when I talk to her, she says that she don't want that talked about too much. She is a straight shooter, and I'm like, well, I hate to tell you that's probably not going to happen.
No. I'm going to use this against you. What are you talking about?
I mean, at this point, I'm thinking now I'm going to have to go find another guest for the show who's an Auburn graduate, just to even things out. I feel like I'm going to get beaten now. I think despite the fact that you're probably going to try to lead her off down that road, I think she's going to be the real deal, and she keeps it straight up. She has great advice. I've watched a bunch of her shows, and before I made the phone call to her and asked her about being on, she's real awesome. If you want to go ahead and start following her, she's on Twitter at 3YITC. That stands for 3 Yards in the Cloud, and that's their website, 3yardsinthecloud.com. She'll be on the show with us starting next week, so pretty excited about that.
Yeah, looking forward to that, absolutely.
For the latest SEC news, log on to southeasternfootball.com.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the Duke Williams situation. One, because it's just driving me crazy, and because two, what I'm really hoping I can do is just purge. Sometimes if I talk about things and purge them, Jamie, they leave, and I don't have to worry about them anymore.
I'm going to remind you every day about this.
I tell you, it seems to me like the problem, because Damian Craig came out and said that it had nothing to do with any incident. The reason he was off field had nothing to do with any incident ever, anywhere.
Okay, then what was it?
And then he said he didn't get any coaches' faces. There was no altercation with coaches. I mean, everything that they've eliminated, to me, all that I can see that is left is just his drive to practice. I don't know what's left. Like he just don't want to practice. He thinks he's too good to practice, or he don't need to practice.
I don't know. In a situation like that, do you really suspend a guy, or do you move him to the third team or the fourth team and make him work even harder?
Well, that seems to be what they've done, which again leads to the theory that that's probably what happened. It concerns me, Jamie. What concerns me as an Auburn fan, you don't want a guy on the team who is causing other guys to pick up bad habits, and that's what bothers me.
He can't be a bad seed.
No, he's a phenomenal talent. He's probably one of the top, however many in the NCAA. But come on, we got some pretty good receivers. I think we could be fine without him, and especially if he's dragging and then you get resentment built in. What are you going to do when you're making, when Ricardo Lewis is out there busting his ass to do the best he can, and Duke's the number one, and he ain't practicing right, or he don't feel like it. I mean, it just causes problems, team unity problems. You
see it on every level. I mean, you've seen it with Terrell Owens, Dez Bryant, those guys in the NFL. I mean, they played on absolutely great teams. A league where it's all about business. It trickles down to those guys that are second and third on the depth chart. And you just, like you said, you don't want incoming freshmen or redshirt freshmen or guys that have been preached to that they're going to have to bust their butt to win a starting position. You don't want them seeing that out of a guy that's supposed to be a leader.
No, and then I'm also, in addition to all those issues, I'm really concerned about his injury. He came back, he practiced one day, then they had the scrimmage, and he's out at halftime. I know a lot of people want him in there, but I would just rather just not have him causing a problem. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. I like Melvin Ray. I like Ricardo Lewis. I like those guys. If they want it, man, that's the guys I want out there. I want the guys out there that want it, but
I believe that's your deepest position on the Auburn team right now. So, the loss of Duke would have an impact, but I think, if you were to lose somebody like Carl Lawson, that would really kill your defense. You lose Duke Williams, it might be a touchdown a game, but you've got enough talent there to where, the end result is not going to be that much different.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Some will follow over the next few weeks. I'm just sick of talking about it. I think a lot of Auburn fans are sick of talking about it. Get in there, man. If you want to play, Gus has already said he's at the bottom of the depth chart. He's got to work his way back up. And if he can do that and he wants to do the work, that's fine. I'm fine with it. Other than that, buddy, enjoy the view from the sideline. That's or move
or the upper deck,
whatever suits you best. Tell you what, I'm not talking about that anymore until next week.
Or stay tuned for 30 more seconds and it may come up again.
No, we're moving on. Here we go with the most lighthearted and fun part of the entire podcast as we talk about this debacle that is the CBS bowl matchup predictions that they came out with.
Oh.
I'll tell you, out of everything that they got wrong, and they got a lot wrong, I'm just glad that they got the one thing right about Auburn being in the playoffs. At least they got that part right.
I don't know if whoever put this together at CBS, if they were on the cush or maybe dipping into Pat Dye's bottle a little bit or something, but this is ridiculous.
On the cush. Look at you using the young kid terms, man. Look at
you got to relate to your younger listeners.
Look at you relating to the 18-year-olds, man. On the cush. So here's their lineup for the playoffs. In the Cotton Bowl, they have Auburn taking on TCU, and the Orange Bowl, Ohio State. See, I almost can't say without laughing. Ohio State and Clemson.
Oh.
Like, honestly, Jamie, how many teams do you think that you could just right off the top of your head list that stand up better, without even doing too much thinking, that would be more likely to be there than Clemson? 20?
More, yeah. Well, quite a few, yeah. Clemson, really? I mean, I can think of, two teams out of the ACC right now that I would give a better chance of being there than Clemson: Florida State and Georgia Tech.
I love that Georgia Tech team, man. I was so impressed with them last year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be better this year too. I really believe they're a legitimate contender for the ACC this year.
That style of offense they run is for the most part boring, consistent but boring. You don't see big flashes of awesomeness happen. but they just get it done, man. And,
yeah, they line up and hit you in the mouth.
yeah, I mean, it's old school. I guess we would both agree Ohio State, we talked about that earlier. I think Ohio State will be there because, A, it's a good team. I mean, they have talent. He's going to continue to bring in talent. He's got the hype going for him. He's got the national championship going to him. He's got his record going for him. And then they don't play anybody. So, yeah. I mean, that's a good combination if you want to make it to the Final Four, is not play anybody. You pretty much are set.
We can always hope that Virginia Tech upsets them again. Maybe Harbaugh will have Michigan ready to play by the end of the year. That's a potential upset, but it's like you said in the Alabama podcast. They should really, if they can't win the Big Ten every year right now, then they should just shut the program down.
How can you not win that every year? Yeah. I mean, they're just. Their schedule is an absolute joke. Like, I'd be ashamed to play that schedule. Like, how do you walk away from that schedule feeling like you accomplished anything? That's bad. That's not right to say, because those kids are out there giving it their all every week, no matter who the opposition is. So that isn't fair to the kids. But, I mean, as an organization, how can you have much pride in that schedule? I don't think you can. We talked about this on the Alabama podcast. Your prediction, nobody's surprised by your prediction, by the way, in case you think you were fooling somebody. Is that Alabama's going to make it into the playoffs and Ohio State is?
Yep, I got TCU and Alabama, and I got Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Oh, you're such a homer, man.
That's my 4. Well, of course I'm going to pick Bama. Who does more with than what Saban does with his team? Give me a reason why it wouldn't be Bama. I can give you several why it's not going to be Auburn, but this is the Auburn podcast. I won't make every Auburn fan in the world mad right now.
I think this is the perfect time for you to give me 3 reasons that Auburn can't make the playoffs.
3 reasons they can't make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Defense. All right.
You do realize that they have made the playoffs and even national championships with some of the worst defenses ever to be put on the field, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Defense is 1.
That's fair. It's not right, but it's fair.
No Duke Williams is number 2.
So you think with Duke Williams they might have a shot. Without Duke Williams, there's no shot?
I'm not saying that. I just really wanted to bring up Duke Williams again.
God. What's number 3?
Number 3 is there can only be one team from the SEC West in the playoff, and they're not Alabama. So number 3 is they're not Alabama.
So out of those, you have a reason just to agitate me. Your other reason is because you're a homer.
Yeah.
And your other reason is completely unfounded based off past experiences. All right, good job, Jamie Thomas. That's some excellent expert analysis right there.
Hey, man, anything I can do to make this a better show.
That story, by the way, if you want to go look at everything, is up on our website, southeasternfootball.com, and that is going to wrap up the show. I want to remind you really quickly, if you like the show and you enjoy it, we do this for free. We don't make no money. We do it because we love Alabama football and Auburn football. We do the 2 podcasts every week. And if you'd like to be a supporter of the show with the Patreon project, it's really easy. Look, we have a host of perks and benefits and things that we do to people who show us love, and it's real easy to find out what those are. You can do as little as $1. You really can. You go, that was worth $1. Come on, the show had to be worth $1, didn't it?
Yeah.
All you got to do is head over to southeasternfootball.com/support, southeasternfootball.com.
I would like to say this, Brett, for the record. Last year, you also said Auburn was going to be there, and I said Alabama was going to be there. So, for the record, I'm 1-0 and you're 0-1. So, who do you guys really want to listen to? The guy that's 1-0 or the guy that's 0-1?
God, I'm so... Look, I said it. I'll admit it. I said it last year because I'm an Auburn fan, because I knew Auburn could not navigate that schedule. On the other hand, I knew that Alabama could navigate their Ohio State type schedule that they had last year. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, well. Oh, man.
This year, Alabama has a bit tougher schedule, and I don't see them getting through it without 2 losses. That's going to be an upcoming podcast, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely going to be another podcast.
We may make that next week. Next week, we run down the schedule game by game, and I tell you everywhere that Alabama's going to go wrong.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Well, that's what else we'll get into. Thanks for listening, man. We're wrapping this thing up. We appreciate you listening to the show, and don't forget you can follow us at Tigers and Tide, the number 1, at Tigers and Tide 1 on Twitter, Facebook.com/Tigers and Tide, and be sure to follow War Eagle Sports Radio at War Eagle Radio for the latest on Auburn Tigers sports. Thanks for listening to the Auburn Football Podcast from SoutheasternFootball.com on War Eagle Sports Radio, a V Sporto channel.
Thanks for listening. Download our free iOS app. Just search for Tigers and Tide in the App Store. And subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Just search for Tigers and Tide. And for the latest SEC news, log on to southeasternfootball.com.